Hello, sorry part 2 came a day late, but I hope you forgive me. So now let's begin. Chapter 5 The Rescue of the Pink Sneakers. Mrs. Pendle was delighted when Poppy got an A on her biography project. An original, in-depth essay, Miss Jenkins, the history teacher, had written in her comments. Unusual but intriguing. Congratulations. "Well done, sweetheart," Edith Pendle said, smoothing out the crumpled pages Poppy handed her. She was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm tea. "Can't wait to show this to Daddy, although I still don't understand why I didn't choose Granny Mabel for your report." Mrs. Pendle glanced up at Poppy. "I mean, she's family after all, and that Madeleine Reynolds was evil." "I think she was more sad than evil," Poppy tried to explain. "Apparently she loved opera." Then, in a softer voice, Poppy added, "But her parents thought singing was a waste of time." Mrs. Pendle made a huffing sound and scraped at a blob of dried-up cake batter that was smeared across the first page of Poppy's paper. "You're lucky Miss Jenkins didn't take a mark off for this presentation," she said. "May be well written, but it's a complete mess." There's one thing Poppy did enjoy about Rutherford, and that was basketball. Ever since babyhood, she had been gifted with a strange ability to jump unnaturally high, and from her first term at school, Poppy played on the basketball team. She was an excellent scorer, getting quite a reputation for her slam dunks. But because Poppy was klutzy on the court as off, her legs were consistently covered in bruises. Even when her shoelaces were double knotted, she somehow managed to trip over her own feet. Still, Poppy loved the game, and it stopped her from thinking about magic. During recess she would practice shooting hoops, which meant she didn't have to hang about with Megan, Fanny, and the other girls getting teased. After most basketball practices, Poppy brought something along she'd made as a snack. Her jam tarts and coconut cupcakes were popular, but it was the chocolate melt-away cookie that the team loved best. "You must use magic in these," Sandra Willis said every time she ate one. "I've never tasted anything so good." "No magic," Poppy would always say with a smile. "Just real vanilla essence and French cocoa." One Thursday afternoon Poppy was walking home from school after practice. She stopped in front of Patrice Marie Claire as usual. There was something comfortingly familiar about the place, and Poppy had always felt drawn to the little French bakery, although she had never gone inside. She wanted to more than anything, but looking through the window was as far as Poppy got. She knew her parents would disapprove. They always bought their bread from Super Savers Market, sliced white loaves that had no taste. But it was more than that. Poppy also knew that if she opened the door and stepped into the Patrici, it would show her a world that she could never be part of, and that was too painful to think about. A tempting selection of cakes and breads were displayed in the window, and Poppy pressed her face against the glass. She liked to watch the woman behind the counter, carefully wrapping up pastries in fancy white boxes. It would be wonderful to work in a shop like that, and Poppy sighed as the lights in the window went out. She had a physical ache in her chest, wanting so badly to learn how to make the cream-filled eclairs and little sponge cakes shaped like sea shells. The woman who worked there smiled at Poppy as she hung a closed sign on the door. Poppy smiled back and slowly walked away. When she was a grown-up, maybe she'd be brave enough to buy her bread at Patrice Marie Claire, thick knobby loaves of walnut wheat and long crusty French baguettes. As Poppy turned the corner onto Canal Street, she heard someone crying. A girl, probably her own age, was sitting on the pavement, sobbing. She wasn't wearing any shoes. "What's wrong?" Poppy asked, squatting down beside her. "They took my sneakers and threw them up there," the girl said, pointing to a tree. Poppy looked up and saw a pair of pink sneakers, tied together at the laces, and dangling over a high branch. "Who did such a mean thing?" "Some horrible girls in my class. You go to elementary school, don't you?" Poppy said, recognizing the pale-faced girl with the frizzy hair. "I think I've seen you on the bus." "Yes," the girl sniffed, wiping her sleeve across her nose and staring at Poppy's purple uniform. "You go to Rutherford Academy." "I do." Poppy looked uncomfortable. "I wish I didn't. Can you magic my sneakers down for me?" "Don't need to," Poppy said, doing a few warm-up stretches. Then, crouching low to the ground, she suddenly gave a powerful leap and jumped as high as she could. "Wow!" the girl exclaimed, as Poppy rocketed through the air and knocked the sneakers out of the tree. They plummeted straight down and almost hit the girl on the head. "Ah!" she blinked in shock. "That was amazing! Gosh, I'm so sorry! Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine," the girl laughed. "How did you do that?" "What, almost hit people?" "No, I mean jump that high." "It's something to do with being magic," Poppy grinned. "I've always been able to jump like that, and I'm strong too, though you'd never know it. Would you, with my skinny arms and legs? I'm Poppy, by the way." "I'm Charlie," the girl said, smiling an enormous gapy grin. She had a rather large space between her two front teeth, and pale, almost invisible eyebrows. "It's short for Charlotte. Charlotte Monroe. Would you like a cookie?" Poppy offered, taking a crumpled paper bag out of her briefcase. There was one chocolate multiply left, which she'd been saving for the walk home. "Thanks." Charlie took a bite and groaned with pleasure. "This is scrummy. You must have bought these at Patricie Mary Claire." "I made them," Poppy said proudly. "You did? How old are you?" she said, squinting shyly at Poppy. "I mean, you cook like a grown-up, but you're wearing a school uniform." "I'm 10, but I'm tall for my age." Poppy shook crumbs from the bag into her mouth, managing to scatter most of them down the front of her sweater. "Well, I'm 10 too," Charlie said. "Look at me. I'm so short people think I'm still in the first form." The girls studied each other for a moment, and then they both burst out laughing. "I'm also a terrible cook," Charlie admitted. "Maybe you could teach me? I know my mom would love that. She always eats my cookies because she doesn't want to hurt my feelings, but they taste disgusting. Yours are so good." "My mom thinks cooking is a waste of time," Poppy said, scrunching the paper bag into a ball. "Witches aren't supposed to cook, but I don't want to be a witch. I want to be a baker." "Ouch!" Charlie winced, trying to stand up. "I think I twisted my ankle when those girls pushed me over." She hopped about on one leg. "I can't put any weight on it." "Careful." Poppy wrapped an arm around Charlie's waist. "Lean on me. I'll take you home." "Are you going to fly on your broomstick?" Charlie sounded excited. "Never flown on a broomstick before." "Well, you're not missing much," Poppy said, lifting Charlie up onto her shoulders. Then, grasping her briefcase in one hand and her broomstick in another, Poppy set off with a skip. She immediately tripped and lurched forward, almost losing her balance. "Are you sure we can't fly?" Charlie asked rather nervously, clinging to Poppy's braid. "It must be a bit heavy for you." No, you're fine," Poppy reassured her as they headed off down Canal Street. "Believe me, walking is much more pleasant." By the time Poppy got home, it was beginning to get dark. She had walked right across to the other side of town, carrying Charlie on her shoulders. They'd chat and told jokes, and Charlie had listened to all Poppy's new recipe ideas. Talking to Charlie, Poppy felt as if she could truly be herself, and she was still feeling happy as she skipped up the garden path. Edith Pendle opened the front door before Poppy had even reached the brass knocker. "Where in heaven have you been?" Basketball practice ran late," Poppy said, her happiness turning to guilt. She knew her mother would disapprove of Charlie because Charlie didn't go to Rutherford. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to worry you." "Oh, Poppy, you walked home, didn't you?" Mrs. Pendle sounded disappointed. "That's why it took so long." Poppy sighed and shoved her broomstick in the umbrella stand. "I don't really like flying, Mom." "But you're marvelous at it." "I don't like flying," Poppy repeated. "It makes me feel sick. And I can't think when I'm flying. I'm too busy concentrating on not falling off. I'd much rather walk. It's relaxing and you see more." "That's the silliest thing I've heard of. Honestly." Mrs. Pendle frowned at her daughter. "Well, go do your homework, Poppy. It's so late. You don't want to get behind." "We don't have any tonight." "You must have homework. It's a school night. How can I not have homework? We weren't given any, but I did get an A for my essay on the history of the wand, Poppy said, knowing this would please her mother. Oh, that's wonderful, Poppy! Mrs. Pendle's frown disappeared, and Poppy made a dash for the kitchen. Are you going to practice some of your spells? Edith Pendle called after her. Poppy pretended not to hear. There was a recipe for almond crunch bars she wanted to try, and of course her mother wouldn't approve. Charlie, on the other hand, thought they had sounded delicious when Poppy described them to her on the walk home. You mixed marzipan into the butter. Poppy had promised to save her new friend some. They agreed to meet down by the canal tomorrow, so long as Charlie's ankle was feeling better. Just a strain, Charlie said after school the next day, holding up her bandaged foot for inspection. They were sitting on the low stone wall of an abandoned cottage that had been built alongside the canal. It had been empty for years. Part of the roof had fallen in and all the windows were broken. The canal was a man-made river cutting right through the middle of Potts Bottom. Nowadays it didn't get much traffic. An occasional pleasure barge would steam by once in a while, but usually there were more ducks floating down it than boats. It's not too sore, and I'm using my grandpa's walking stick, Charlie said. She was munching on one of Poppy's almond crunch bars. These taste better than anything Patricie Mary Claire sells. That's my dream, Poppy said, throwing a stone into the water. To own a fancy cake shop when I grow up. Well, I'm sure you will. I'd buy things from you all the time. It's not as simple as that, Poppy explained. My parents would never allow it. They're so proud of me being a witch. And I'm a good witch, a really good witch. That's the problem. It would break their hearts if I became a baker. Have you told them how you feel? Charlie asked. Sometimes parents can surprise you. You don't know my mom and dad, Poppy said miserably. My mom hates it when I bake. She even banned me from looking at my cookbooks. The only books I'm allowed to read are things like Magic Through the Ages and The Art of Flying. Oh, this do sound fun, though, Charlie said. We don't have anything like that in our house. You have to be a member of the Witches' Guild to join the Magic Book Club, Poppy told her. They send me a new book every month. My parents signed me up while I was still a baby, if you can believe that. Apparently I was the youngest person ever to join. Really? Charlie lifted breasts. I inherited the gift from my great-grandmother, Mabel, Poppy explained. Magic just happened to me when I was little. It wasn't something I could control. It must be sort of special, though, being magic, Charlie said. Flying about on a broomstick, casting spells? I wish I were. My life is so dull. I'll bet it's not. You just think it is. Believe me, magic doesn't make you any happier. Would you show me a spell? Charlie begged. I've never seen real magic before. Please? Oh, fine, Poppy said, pulling her wand out of her briefcase. But there's no substance to magic, you know. It's all hot air and showing off. Waving her wand over the canal, Poppy trotted out a quick spell. Suddenly hundreds of fish popped their heads above the water and started to dance. They jitterbugged and twisted and made kissing sounds with one another with fat, pouty lips. Charlie squealed with laughter as the fish boogied about, slapping and splashing with their tails. Then, waving their scaly fins at the girls, they flipped back into water. That was unbelievable! Charlie shrieked. Thanks, Poppy gave a wan smile. But it gets boring after a while, she sighed. Believe me, I know. Chapter 6. Just Say No. Poppy was late leaving for school Monday morning, which had Mrs. Pendle flapping about the kitchen like a flustered hen. Miss Corn said that let her home about today's magical management class being a special one, and could everyone please be on time? And here you are, Poppy, late again! Poppy had been up early baking lemon squares. She had hidden her Good Eats magazine with the recipe in it under her spell books so her mother wouldn't see. Mrs. Pendle had cancelled Poppy's subscription to the magazine, so Poppy had to buy from the corner shop now. The lemon squares had taken much longer than Poppy anticipated, and it was past 9 o'clock by the time they were done. When Mrs. Pendle noticed the time, she snapped, "This is ridiculous," finally shooing her daughter out the door. "Mom, I'm sorry," Poppy said, a warm container of lemon squares clutched against her chest. She could already feel her socks starting to slip as she hurried down the garden path. Maxine from next door was watching curiously over the fence, a pink chiffon scarf tied around her curlers. and started to drizzle lightly, and Poppy wished she had grabbed an umbrella. "Don't forget your wand!" Edith Pendle dashed after Poppy and tucked a sticky magic wand in her daughter's pocket. "No time to walk now, is there? You'll have to fly." Not wanting to upset her mother further, Poppy hopped onto her broomstick, bounced the lemon squares in her lap, and flew the short, rainy distance to Rutherfield. She made a rather slippery landing outside the school gates, skidding to a halt next to a small dark purple van with no windows. It had "Danger, Ferocious Cargo" printed across both sides, and the license plate said "Scrubs 1." Poppy wondered why it was there, and feeling a touch nervous in case it had anything to do with her being so late, she hurried up the steps. She was actually relieved to see Deirdre Lambert rushing through the door just ahead of her. It was a nice feeling not to have to walk in alone. "What do you think's going on?" Poppy panted. "Do you see that van with the Scrubs license plate? I wonder why it's here. Do you think it's really from Scrubs prison?" "I don't know anything," Deirdre sneered. Fourth years always get the Scrubs talk in May. What's that?" "You're so dumb," Deirdre said, rolling her eyes at Poppy. "It's like, the big speech we all get," she whispered, lowering her voice and making quotation marks in the air for fingers. "Some of the guards from Scrubs come all the way over here just to talk to us. Tell us what it's really like in there." Deirdre picked out a corner of peeling purple nail polish. "It's meant to scare the pants off us so we'll stay good, not abuse our powers." "Oh my goodness," Poppy murmured, shifting the lemon squares under one arm and nervously pulling up her socks. "That must be what Miss Corns arranged for this morning. Well, you better hurry then." "Did it work?" Poppy couldn't help asking as she watched the older girl saunter off down the corridor. "I mean, scare the pants off you?" Deirdre stopped and turned around. "Yeah, it worked all right. It was horrible, really horrible. We're not allowed to talk about it, but I'll tell you this," Deirdre said. "It gave me nightmares for months afterward." Poppy was undeniably nervous about entering her magical management class. She tapped lightly on the door and crept inside. "You're late," Miss Corns said, glancing at the clock. "I'm sorry, Miss Corns. Well, sit down quickly, please. I was just saying that we have a special guest visiting to talk with you all today. What you're about to hear is not to be discussed with any of the other students. Do you understand?" "Yes, Miss Corns," the girls chanted. "If any of you ignore this order, there will be swift and severe penalties. Am I clear?" Before the girls could answer again, a loud knocking sounded on the door. It was immediately flung open, and a man dressed in a black guard's uniform marched in, followed by two other similarly clad men carrying an empty iron cage. There were no smiles or cheerful greetings as the cage was slammed onto the floor. The first guard shook Miss Corns firmly by the hand. Then he turned and addressed the girls. "Are any of you know what this is?" he said. "It's a cage," Megan Roberts answered. "That is correct. Does anyone know what it's for?" "Keeping wild animals in?" Fanny Freeman whispered. "Close," the guard replied. He picked up a piece of chalk and wrote the word "evil" on the blackboard. "That cage is what you'll get carted off to Scrubs in if you misbehave. And some of our witches, like this one here," he continued, thrusting out a large glossy photograph of a bald-headed woman, "never, ever leave their cages." The witch's eyes were so wild and angry that Poppy actually pushed back her chair, scraping the legs across the floor. "Calm down, it's only a photograph," the guard reminded them, propping the picture up on the blackboard next to the word "evil." "She can't hurt you." "Oh, but it's awful!" Fanny Freeman wailed softly. She traced the sickle moon in the air with her finger. This was a sign the girls made whenever they saw or heard something distressing. "Take a really good look at a very, very wicked witch," the guard said. "If you're ever tempted to dabble in black magic or misuse your powers, then I promise you right now that is how you're going to end up. Locked away forever." "No!" Megan Roberts whimpered, but the guard slowly nodded his head. "What you see there is a witch who went over to the dark side," he told them. Poppy stared at the photograph. The witch was wearing a purple boiler suit with a large black number 10 printed on the front. "She wasn't always like this," the guard said. "At one point in time she was just like you lot, a good Rutherfield girl. Head girl, if I'm right. He looked at Miss Corns for confirmation. Yes, indeed, she acknowledged in a quiet voice, and believe it or not, one of our finest students. What did she do? Megan whispered. Speak up! The guard barked. I can't hear you. Megan cleared her throat and tried again. What did she do to end up in scrubs? She brewed storms, powerful storms. The guard thumped the picture of his fist. Whole bottom half of Italy is underwater because of her. Not Madeleine Reynolds. Poppy gasped, trying to connect the wistful, smiling girl she'd seen in pictures of and books with this scary-looking creature. That's right, the guard said. Striding over to Poppy's desk, he smelled of tin stew. An A+ for a correct answer. You're a bright girl. I did a biography project on Madeleine Reynolds, Poppy mumbled, looking away from the blackboard. Even though it was just a photograph, the witch appeared to be staring straight at her. Poppy felt her face flush with heat. Madeleine Reynolds had a beautiful voice, Poppy said. She loved opera, but her parents didn't want her to have a singing career. So what? The guard shrugged. It's not important. We're here to talk about the fact that she's evil, which is why she ended up in Scrub's prison. No exercise allowed for this one, no freedom at all. Fed right through the bars like the wild creature she is. Pulling a bottle of water out of his pocket, the guard unscrewed the lid, tilted back his head, and proceeded to gulp down every last drop. He burped, wiping a hand across his mouth, and carried on speaking. All prisoners at Scrubs get 2 meals a day. It's always the same thing. Water, porridge, and grapefruit. Why grapefruit? One of the girls asked timidly. So they don't get scurvy. Nothing's worse than a witch covered in scurvy. Their skin cracks and they get these awful bumps. The guard shivered. Can't stand the sight of them, so make sure they eat their grapefruit. How terrible, Poppy whispered. Then, unable to stop herself, she asked, Doesn't Madeleine Reynolds ever get let out of her cage? Not even for a few minutes? Nope, not that one. But she's a 10, one of our worst offenders. The guard said, gesturing at the photograph. You see, we have a numbering system for all our prisoners. If you're in for a more minor infraction, like forecasting the stock market or fixing a football game, well, they makes you anything from a 1 to a 5, depending on the severity of your crime. Those witches have more freedom. We let them out of their cages twice a day for job duty. Fanny Freeman raised her hand. What kind of job? She asked, sorting out the moldy grapefruit from the good grapefruit, peeling the grapefruit, and grinding up the rinds for compost with their fingernails. Ooh, Fanny made a face. That's disgusting. Well, they're the lucky ones, the guard sneered. If you're a 6 or higher, then you don't get to leave your cage. Ever. What number would you get for turning someone into a toad? A voice from the back of the class piped up. Depends. The guard cleared his throat. We've got a witch in Scrubs for a moment who turned a whole family into hamsters. She's a 7, but it's the court's job to decide what number is given to them. Our job is to make sure they don't escape. And in case any of you were wondering, he added, all of our cages are housed in long, narrow buildings with no windows. Each cage is locked inside a soundproof cell so there's no communication at all between prisoners. Meals are eaten in solitude and there's no talking on job duty. The guards make sure of that. Can they have visitors? Megan said. Absolutely not, and no letters from home either. We don't allow our prisoners any contact with the outside world. The guard started to walk slowly up and down the aisles. Our exact location is top secret, then, as I'm sure you all know. The only information we give out is that we're on an island somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and here he pulled back his shoulders, beginning to swagger a bit. I'm proud to tell you that our little island is fully self-sufficient. We grow all our own grapefruit and harvest an enormous oat crop twice a year for porridge. Truly impressive, Miss Corns muttered. The guard gave her a brisk smile. Just so you're all aware, he suddenly barked, banging Fanny Freeman's desk and scaring some of the girls right out of their seats. Once you're in Scrubs for life. Got that? He shouted, spitting out a spray of saliva with his words. There was a long, drawn-out silence in the room, until finally Miss Corns said, Well, thank you for coming, Sergeant Murphy. I think the girls have heard enough. She looked as pale as the rest of her class. Happy to oblige, the guard replied, clicking his heels together. He strode from the room and held it open while the other 2 guards picked up the cage and marched out. And remember, girls, Sergeant Murphy said, just say no to evil. You do not want to end up in one of those. As soon as the Scrubs party had left, Meg and Robert started to cry loudly, and so did a handful of other girls. Poppy stared into space, feeling too stunned to make a sound. She couldn't believe what she'd just seen, that horrifying picture of Madeleine Reynolds. She also couldn't help feeling the tiniest bit sorry for the poor witch. No one should be subjected to a life like that, and although there had been hatred in Madeleine Reynolds' eyes, Poppy felt certain that she'd glimpsed sadness in the photograph as well. "Magic is a gift you've all been given, girls," Miss Corn said softly. "It's up to each one of you to manage it wisely." "But what if we don't want to use our magic when we grow up?" Poppy questioned. "What if we want to do something else with our lives?" Miss Corns was silent for a minute, and then she gave a nervous laugh. "My goodness me, Poppy Pendle, you do see the strangest things. For a moment there I thought you were serious." Poppy sighed and chewed the end of her pencil. Even though she wasn't trapped in a real cage of iron bars, that's a bit how she felt right now, sitting inside Ruthersfield Academy, feeling so hot and stuffy she could scarcely breathe. When Poppy met Charlie by the canal later that afternoon, she was in a gloomy mood. "It was an awful day," Poppy said, flinging her briefcase and broomstick at the patch of ferns and climbing on top of the wall. Poppy yanked the lid off the container of lemon bars and offered them to a friend. "I don't want to talk about it because it's so horrible." Poppy picked up a handful of stone and threw them into the canal. She watched the circles ripple out while Poppy sat beside her, eating lemon bars. A goose waddled by, pecking at some crumbs on the ground. He gave a low honk, and Charlie giggled, throwing him a tiny corner of the buttery crust. "These are delicious," Charlie said softly, touching Poppy on the arm. A lump formed in Poppy's throat. "I wish my parents thought so," Poppy said. "All they care about is magic." She scooped up another handful of stones and chucked them at the far bank. "I'm not even allowed to practice my cake decorating any more, although using a piping bag requires just as much skill as a wand, if you ask me." Poppy sighed and added, "There's an interesting technique for buttercream frosting I'd like to try." "Come to my house," Charlie suggested. "You can make it there if you like, and I'd love my mom and dad to meet you." "Gosh, Charlie, can I?" Poppy spun around to face her friend, almost dropping the lemon bars. "That'd be so great. Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure. It'd be fun." "Oh, Charlie, thank you so much. But don't tell them that I'm magic," Poppy begged. "It always causes problems." Chapter 7. Time to Go. It was not that difficult for Poppy to persuade her mother to let her go to tea at Charlie's house. For one thing, Poppy didn't mind the fact that Charlie was not a Ruthersfield girl. "I'm so glad you're finally making friends," Edith Pendle said happily. "Is she on the basketball team?" No, she's not exactly sporty." "Is she in any of your classes?" She's the same age as me," Poppy said truthfully. "I wonder if she's the first witch in our family. Do you know?" "Mum, please." Poppy gave her mother an imploring look. "We don't talk about that kind of stuff." "Well, you must invite Charlie back to our house next week," Mrs. Pendle insisted. "We can show her our family tree." Poppy had no intention of bringing Charlie anywhere near her parents, especially not after meeting Charlie's mom and dad. They didn't hover over the girls or badger them with questions about homework, and no one minded when Poppy sprawled on the floor next to Charlie, flipping through Mrs. Monroe's cookbooks. Afterward, Mrs. Monroe even let them practice making chocolate buttercream in the kitchen. Then the whole family, including Charlie's mom and dad, spooned frosting straight out of the pan. This was something Poppy couldn't imagine doing for her own parents. Whenever she took out a mixing bowl at home, her mother's lips got all pursed. At Charlie's, Poppy felt completely happy, just like a normal girl. "Please do come again," Charlie's mom said as Poppy reluctantly got ready to leave. "It's been a real pleasure meeting you, and Charlie was right. You're a wonderful baker. Your parents must be very proud." "Oh, they are," Poppy agreed glumly, putting on her blazer. "They think I'm amazing." In that precise moment, the doorbell rang, and Poppy could see her mother's eager face peering through the glass panel. "Mum, what are you doing here?" Poppy said nervously as soon as the door opened. "I told you I'd walk home." "I wanted to meet your friend's parents," Mrs. Pendle said, smiling so hard to look uncomfortable. "These silly girls," she fussed. "Imagine walking when you can ride a broomstick." Charlie's mom seemed puzzled, and Mrs. Pendle added, Poppy's top of her class flying, you know. Flying? Mrs. Monroe looked even more confused, then her face cleared. Oh, Poppy must go to Rothersfield, she exclaimed. I had no idea. How exciting. And your daughter doesn't attend the academy? Mrs. Pendle said. Heavens, no. We don't have enough magic in this family to bend a teaspoon. Really? Edith Pendle's lips tightened as she ushered Poppy outside, and she didn't speak again until they were in the car driving home. What have you got all over you? Edith finally snapped, glancing at Poppy in the rearview window. You're covered in something sticky. Chocolate, Poppy admitted, not mentioning that it was from a vast batch of frosting she'd been allowed to make. Honestly, Mrs. Pendle gave a succession of heavy sighs. I'll have to give that a good soaking tonight. Mom, she's a nice girl, Poppy blurted out, wanting her mother to understand. She's my friend. Poppy, she goes to the elementary school, Mrs. Pendle shot back. Lots of girls are going to want to be your friend simply because you're a witch. But Poppy's not like that. She doesn't care that I'm a witch, and she's funny, Mom. I really like her. Mrs. Pendle gave another dramatic sigh. You should have told me she wasn't a Rothersfield girl. I trusted you, Poppy. Mom, if you knew she went to the elementary school, you wouldn't have let me see her, Poppy said, starting to cry. Listen, sweetheart, Mrs. Pendle's voice softened. Daddy and I know what's best for you, and right now you really need to be concentrating on your magic. She reached back a hand and patted Poppy in the leg. So for your own good, Poppy, you're not allowed to see that girl again. But she's nice, Poppy said, huddling by the car window. I like her, Mom. She's the only friend I've got. Now don't be so dramatic, Poppy. There are plenty of nice girls at Rothersfield. Girls just like you who are special. I don't want to be special, Poppy wept, kicking the back of her mother's seat. And then she said the words had been building up inside her mouth. I don't want to be a witch. It felt so good, Poppy said them again louder this time. I don't want to be a witch, Mom. I hate magic. She could see the back of her mother's neck stiffen. Mom, I truly don't want to be a witch, Poppy shouted. Please try to understand. Now, Poppy, you're just having a bad day. Mrs. Pendle said at last. She switched on the radio. We all get those once in a while. Poppy kicked her mother's seat again in frustration. It wasn't a bad day. It was one of the best days ever. I loved being with Charlie. Her mother didn't reply, and Poppy banged her fist on the door panel, needing to be heard. Listen to me, Mom. I don't want to be a witch, she said, but her mother had turned up the volume, drowning out Poppy's words. Poppy slumped back with a sigh, sinking down in her seat. She saw her mother glance at her on the rear window, and turned her head away, feeling invisible. As soon as she got home, Poppy charged straight upstairs. I know you don't understand this now, Mrs. Pendle panted, following right behind her, but you will when you're older, I promise. Charlie will be a distraction for you. This is an important year, Poppy. You can't lose your focus. She's nice, Poppy sobbed, flinging herself down on her bed. And Charlie's parents don't mind if she reads cookbooks. Charlie's parents don't have a little witch in their making, do they? Mrs. Pendle clucked. Now how about this weekend we all take that trip to the Museum of Magical Discoveries I promised you. They have a whole display on Great Granny Mabel and her hair invention. Mom, please go away, Poppy whispered, crying into her pillow. I'd like to be alone. There's no need to be rude, Poppy. I was only trying to be nice. Mom, I really hate magic, Poppy pleaded, lifting her head and looking at her mother out of red, watery eyes. I hate it. You just never listen to me. I'm gonna go put the kettle on. Edith Pendle sighed. Really, I'm just exhausted by all this. She smoothed Poppy's skirt down. Think about my museum idea, sweetheart. We can all do the day out. Poppy turned her face to the wall and closed her eyes. Living here was unbearable. Nothing she said made a difference. Her mother would never understand how she felt. She doesn't recognize the opportunity she's got, Maxine from next door synthesized over a cup of tea later that afternoon. What an honor it is to go to Rothersfield. You've done everything for Poppy, Edith. We have. Mrs. Pendle nodded, dabbing her eyes with tissue. And Rothersfield's not cheap, let me tell you. I'm not complaining, mind you. But I wonder if Poppy really appreciates appreciates what we're giving up for her." "Yes, and never heard you complain once," Maxine remarked. "Well, you want what's best for your child, don't you, my Charlie?" Mrs. Pendle hailed, gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I'm sure she's the one who's been putting ideas into Poppy's head, turning her against the magic." She leaned forward. "I don't mean to sound hard-hearted, Maxine, but Poppy is not to see that girl again." "Oh, I couldn't agree more. She'll thank you in the long run," Maxine murmured. "And all this nonsense of cooking," Mrs. Pendle said, watching Maxine help herself to one of Poppy's dream bar. "I can't take it any more. It has to stop." Maxine moaned, chewing softly on the dream bar. It was one of Poppy's own creations. "These are sensational, though. You can't deny she cooks like an angel." Picking up the plate of chocolate marshmallow fingers, Mrs. Pendle walked over to the sink and dumped the whole lot in. Then she turned the water on full blast and shoved the rest of the dream bars down the trash disposal. When Mr. Pendle got home from work that evening, Mrs. Pendle met him at the door, sniffing cheerfully. He took off his shoes and put on his slippers while his wife told him exactly what to say. "You must be firm for Roger, for her own good. I've tried to explain things to Poppy, but she needs to hear from her father. Right. She has to understand we know what's best for her." "Okay." Roger Pendle looked a little puzzled. "Tell her we won't put up with any more of this nonsense. Make it clear she can have Ruffersfield girls whenever she wants, but not as Charlie present from elementary school. And no more baking." "Well now, that's a bit harsh, isn't it?" Mr. Pendle blew his nose. "But it's so disruptive to her studies. Not even the odd cookie or something, after she's done her homework. She's a witch, Roger. That's what she needs to be concentrating on right now. Unfortunately, it's never the odd cookie with Poppy." "Yes, you're right," Mr. Pendle agreed. "We must be firm." And squaring his shoulders, he marched upstairs to talk to Poppy. "Well, how did she take it?" Mrs. Pendle asked over dinner that evening. Poppy refused to leave her room and join them. "Oh, she understands," Mr. Pendle said, forking up shepherd's pie and trying hard not to taste what he was swallowing. It was Super Saver's own brand and had the smell and texture of canned dog food. "She's a bit upset, of course," he added, stirring his dinner around, "but not as angry as I was expecting. I have to say I'm rather proud of myself. Yes." He straightened his tie and smiled across at his wife. "I believe she took it very well, Edith." Upstairs in her room, Poppy threw some clothes into a pillowcase, along with her favorite cookbooks and basketball. A deep sadness welled inside her. She couldn't stay here any more, not after that awful conversations with her parents. Besides, never seeing Charlie again, father had told Poppy in the nicest possible way that she wasn't going to be allowed to do any more cooking either. "I love to bake," Poppy whispered. "I just love it." And the thought of never making another cupcake again was too much for her. Wiping away the last of her tears, Poppy ripped out a blank page of her spell book and scrawled across in purple ink, "Dear Mom and Dad, I've run away from Pot's bottom. Please don't try to find me, because I'm not coming home, ever. I don't want to be a witch, and I hate magic. I hate it. I'll never be like Great Granny Mabel. Love, Poppy." Leaving the note lying on her bed, Poppy softly opened her bedroom window and looked down. If only her parents could accept who she was and be happy for her. If only they didn't care so much about her magic. But they did, and there's nothing Poppy could do to change that. She hesitated a moment as she pondered the drop. It was too far to jump, but she had no intention of walking downstairs and out the front door. Her parents would find a way to stop her. With a resigned sigh, Poppy picked up her magic wand and quickly conjured up a magic ladder. She didn't like using magic, but this was an emergency. Then, throwing the pillowcase over her shoulders, and without a backward glance, she scrambled to the ground. Lights were shining through the kitchen window, and Poppy could see her parents staring at the television. The opening credits for Magic in the Family were just starting up, and a box of disgustingly artificial flavored chocolate cakes called Fudge Monkeys sat between them. Poppy blinked back tears, refusing to cry any more. A torrent of hot anger suddenly swept through her, and the force of such powerful emotions scared Poppy. She was right to turn away. This sort of anger wasn't good. Not wanting anything to do with magic ever again, she hurled her wand with all her strength into some rhododendron bushes. Then, with a soft plop, and, turning to give one final look at the house on Pudding Lane that had been her home for the past 10 years, Poppy clambered over the garden fence and started to head toward town. Although she felt scared and alone, Poppy kept on walking. She had to be able to bake. Okay, sorry, that was a little long. Actually, I was planning on finishing chapter 8, but chapter 7 was so long that I'm just going to stop here and now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. And that's all. Bye! I'll have the next one hopefully ready by tomorrow.